The cold came down like a wall that night. It wasn't the kind of winter chill you could shake off with a coat or a cup of coffee. It was the kind that pressed into your chest, that made the air feel sharp enough to cut. The kind of cold that didn't forgive mistakes. He'd been working late again. Overtime that pushed him past dark, and the drive home felt longer than usual. The roads were empty. The street lamps threw long orange halos onto frozen pavement. Everything looked brittle, frozen in place, and then he saw it. A small shape, motionless beneath one of those lamps. At first he thought it was trash, a discarded jacket, maybe, or a bundle of rags someone had tossed from a car window. But something about the way it sat there, huddled and still, made him slow down, made him pull over. He left the engine running, door hanging open, exhaust curling white into the night air. The wind hit him immediately, sharp and unforgiving. He crouched down beside the shape, and his breath caught. It was an animal, small, fragile, covered in a thin dusting of snow that had begun to settle into its fur. For a moment he thought it was a kitten, some poor stray that had wandered too far from shelter. But then he saw the markings, the tufted ears, the faint rosettes along its sides, barely visible beneath the frost. His mind struggled to catch up with what his eyes were telling him. A bobcat, a kitten, yes, but not the kind anyone expected to find on the side of a suburban road in the dead of winter. Its eyes were closed, its breathing so shallow he had to watch its ribs closely, just to be sure it was still alive. He didn't know much about wild animals, didn't know protocol or safety, or whether touching it was even legal, but he knew cold. He knew what happened when living things stayed out in it too long. He pulled off his coat without thinking, and wrapped the tiny body as gently as he could. It didn't resist, didn't flinch. That scared him more than anything. He cradled it against his chest and ran back to the truck, fumbling with the door, cranking the heat as high as it would go. The bobcat kitten stayed limp in his arms, fragile as glass. The drive home was a blur of dark roads and yellow lines. He kept one hand on the wheel, and the other pressed lightly against the bundle in his lap, feeling for movement, for warmth, for any sign that he wasn't too late. The wind howled against the windows. The heater roared, and still the small body in his coat remained terrifyingly still. By the time he pulled into his driveway, his heart was pounding harder than it had any right to. Inside, the house felt too bright, too warm, too normal for what he was carrying. He cleared the kitchen table in a rush, mail, coffee mugs, yesterday's newspaper, and laid the bobcat down on a stack of clean towels. Its fur was stiff with cold. Its paws were pale, almost blue at the pads. He'd read somewhere once that you couldn't warm a frozen animal too quickly. That shock could kill just as easily as the cold itself. So he worked slowly, carefully, heating pad on low, wrapped in another towel and placed beneath the kitten. Warm, not hot, water in a shallow dish, dabbed gently along its legs and belly. He massaged its paws between his palms, coaxing circulation back into the delicate bones. The bobcat didn't wake, didn't make a sound, but after 20 minutes, its breathing deepened. After an hour, its body began to relax, the rigid tension melting into something softer. He told himself it was temporary, just tonight, just until he could find a wildlife rescue center in the morning. Someone trained, someone who knew what they were doing. He wasn't equipped for this, didn't have the knowledge, or the resources, or the right kind of help. This was a wild animal. It belonged somewhere else, with people who understood it.
The man sat up slowly, careful not to disturb them. The bobcat was stronger now. He could see it in the steadiness of its breath, the subtle movements beneath its eyelids. It would survive. Against the odds, against the brutal cold, it would live.